One of the neatest things about local storage is that the API provides us with the means to announce changes to other tabs that might be open. So let's take a look at how we can get into this. And we'd use the storage event. So this storage event will fire every time that we use set item, remove item, or clear. Whenever that data is manipulated, the storage event is going to fire and say, hey, something is going on here. If you need to hook into this, here you go. All right, let's try it out. Within script tags, we would do window.add event listener, and we're going to listen for the storage event. And when that fires, we will execute this anonymous function. Now, once this does fire, we can pass the event object. And that's going to contain all of the pertinent information related to the change that occurred. And that will include the name of the key that was modified, that's important, the old value, and then the new value that was applied. And then if you also need it, it will also give you the URL to the specific page or tab that triggered the change. All right, let's try this out. Once again, I have a very simple form here. We've added a name and an input. Very, very simple to illustrate the idea. Now, let's set a default value to the input. So the first step is always don't do anything unless you've detected support. If modernizer.local storage, then continue on. Next, we'll create a variable called name, and I want you to note we aren't wrapping this in a function, so these are global variables. You would definitely want to enclose all of your code, and I'm going to assume that you do that in the cases where I don't bother to do so. But in this case, we'll add it. That way, name is a local variable, and it's not available to the window object, which is definitely a good practice. All right, let's continue on. Var name is going to be equal to document.getElement by ID name. So now we have a reference to this input. Let's set its default value. And we can do that by using the value attribute. Name.value equals Joe. Let's try that. Reload, and it has been assigned. So we know we're doing it right. Now in this case, I want to either set it to an empty string, or if there is local storage available, we will set it to that. So if a key has been saved, and we'll call it name, we're going to assign that to the value of the input. However, if that doesn't exist, we're going to use this nifty technique or. So set it to local storage.name or an empty string. So now at this point, if I reload, we haven't saved anything, so we have an empty string. All right, the next step is we need to listen for when the user updates this input. And we'll do that, we'll simply listen for the blur, because at that point, it's assumed they've clicked on it, they've done something to it, and they've blurred off of it. All right, let's try that right here. Name.add event listener. And notice I'm not doing Internet Explorer's attach event. You can either use jQuery or you can use your own add event function. Just let me know within the comments of this course if you need some help with that. So name.add event listener, listening for blur. Once again, when it does blur, we will execute a function and it won't bubble. Now, the only thing we need to do here is say if there is a value, in which case we don't want to do anything if they click in here, they tab off, and there's no value. Don't waste time saving to local storage. But if there is a value, in that case, we will say local storage, create a new key called name. Remember, we can also do set item name. We can do both versions, and that will be equal to this dot value. Create a key and make it equal to whatever is currently within this text box. Good. So with that alone, let's save it, come back, reload the page. I'm going to type my name, Jeffrey Way. I'm going to trigger the blur event by tabbing or clicking off. That's going to update local storage. Let's make sure it did. Resources, local files, there it is. And I can get rid of comment because that was from the previous lesson. And now if I reload the page, this line right here will execute, but this time local storage.name will not be false. It will be equal to my name in this case, and that will be applied to the input's value. So I will come back, reload. There we go, local storage there. Now, when we type another name, link, and we come to the next page, I want that one to update as well. So we use the storage event that we've learned about. Right here, we'll add another one, window.add event listener. And now we're listening for the storage event. And for the time being, let's simply log something to the console. Updated. Now the only note is though, this is not going to work locally. So if I change this to Zelda and I switch over to the next tab, there's nothing going to be logged, and that's because we need to be working on a server. So in this case, why don't we simply run over to jsbin.com, or if you have a local server, maybe you use PHP and MAMP or Ruby on Rails, you can set it up that way. But this is the quickest way that we'll do it. I'm going to copy everything we've done here and paste it into the HTML. Then I'll take my script and add it to the JavaScript tab, like so. Okay, and that looks good to me. So let's save this. Now we are running on a server. So we'll create another tab, open up the console for each. There we go. All right, and I'm going to change this one to Zelda. I'm going to tab off. And now if I come back to the next one, you'll see that this event has fired, so we can detect when these changes are made. Cool. So the last step is to update this value. Rather than logging something to the console, we will simply update the name's value. When the storage event fires, something has changed, so we're going to get the input value and we're going to set it to local storage.name. All right, save that again, reload that, create another tab, and now let's try it out. We're going to change this one to Mario this time. I blur, the storage event will now fire, and when I click over to the next tab without having done anything, that value instantly updates, and we can go back and forth. Luigi, and that's been updated. Toad, and that's been updated. Isn't that really cool? That is local storage and the storage event at work. Now in the next lesson, we're going to take a look at how you can save more complex objects, because right now you can only essentially save a string. You could not save an object to local storage. However, there are ways around that.